guest, Adrian Balfour, has built companies at the intersection of leadership, technology, and execution for decades. He's the founder and chairman of Envorso, a digital transformation and AI consulting firm helping major brands like BMW, Bose, Microsoft, and Cummins modernize how they operate and grow. But what makes Adrian especially interesting is that this isn't his first time building and scaling. Before Envorso, he co-founded P Cubed, a project management consultancy that grew into a global firm with more than 1,000 consultants before it was successfully sold in 2013.
Mhm.
And somehow, alongside all of that, he also helped launch Major League Rugby in the United States and built the Seattle Seawolves into back-to-back champions. This is a conversation about scaling, reinvention, and building organizations that last. Adrian, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you for
Yeah,
having me on today. It's
I'm so
great to meet
excited.
you.
Yeah, it's always nice to have folks on the show and you get to know them a little deeper and
Mhm.
building companies and all these wonderful things that are happening behind the scenes that you never even know about. So rugby is not something that our family's into. We're actually into hockey. We're big hockey fans.
Oh,
So
cool. That's a really cool sport. I love it. I used to live in Detroit and I used to go see the Red Wings.
yes.
The day that would have been in the sort of mid early to mid 90s. I
Yeah.
was going right all the way up to 2000. I was going to see those guys fairly regularly. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So we're in the playoffs for the Stanley Cup right now. So we're,
Nice.
going through all of that. I have hockey on the TV every single night and I'm like, "Okay, when does this get done?"
Yeah, it's kind of tense, isn't it? It
Yes,
gets
it
stressful.
is.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. It's a crazy ride. So I it's always fun to watch and see
Yeah.
your team win. And then when they don't, boy, it's heartbreaking. So
It's especially because it's just sort of turns on fine margins and small calls and little things. And even if you're 2 or 3 points behind, it's very small things, very small things.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And so it's very tense. So
Yeah.
I will say that. It's very tense in my house too.
Yes, yes, yes.
My husband's
It's,
yelling at the screen. So anyway, I know rugby is a vigorous sport just like that. And so
mhm. Yeah.
I can imagine what you're
It's
used
ver-
to seeing.
very similar. We play it on grass, not ice, but it's very similar in terms that there's no downtime. It's
Yeah,
all action all the time.
yeah,
And that's
constantly
kind of
moving.
fun. And it's
Yeah.
physical and athletic, and it's just yeah, and a lot of little micro strategies on the field and all that sort of stuff. It's
Yeah,
kind of cool.
very
Yeah.
similar to the hockey world. Yeah.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to have you on today because I think your founder story is so cool and so unique in that you've founded multiple companies over time and you've also exited. And I think
Hmm.
there's so many stories in here. But where I really want to start is your founder story. And
Okay.
um, you started your first company at 27, which is quite young,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
scaled it globally without any outside funding, which is also pretty impressive.
Yes.
Um, what gave you the confidence to take that leap before you fully knew what you were doing?
I had an engineering degree in electronics, so I kind of had a good technical understanding. And then I'd worked in cybersecurity cryptography back in France. So leaving, I grew up on a farm in the west of Ireland, in Northern Ireland. Went to college in England, went to college in Belfast, and then had a job in France with France Telecom working on cybersecurity. So leaving the farm to go to a big city, to go to England, then to go to France, those sort of experiences got me out of my own little shell.
Yeah,
So there's no way you could be in your own bubble because your bubble didn't exist. You're in somebody else's bubble and you're trying to learn the game. So
yeah,
that was so culturally and psychologically, it kind of got you in the frame of let's be open to new things, let's learn, let's be curious and expect, use your critical thinking skills because you have to in order to survive, especially living in another country where you're speaking another language that you
yeah.
didn't grow up with.
Right.
So that was those were really good experiences. And then I went to work in London, and I worked in a sort of large corporate developing software. And I got understanding of how the corporations used to work, or
Hmm.
how companies actually thought, how leadership worked. I was exposed to a lot of senior leaders at the time, and I was exposed to certain process elements within those companies. And I figured, okay, well, some of these things don't make sense. I look at it from an external perspective and I go like, gee, I could really make a big difference here. So I decided, why not? I'll set a company up and go do that. Move to the United States, move to Detroit. Went in and started talking to different leaders in different companies in Detroit. And one of the leaders that was running a major car program thought that my stick had some legs. Yeah. And I backed it up with some technical understanding. So I had not just a let's do it a different way than you, let's not manage this project or this program in a different way, but let's use some modern technologies
Yeah.
behind that to make it transparent and to drive things forward. And that sort of like kickstarted everything. Got the company moving. Had to, dig deep myself. So I was working probably at least 16 hours a day,
Yeah.
7 days a week. Um, and then, hiring employees to kind of fulfill the client work that we were working on and so on and so forth. And the next thing I looked up and, we were, over 100 people.
Yeah. Timing always has to be right when you start to
Mhm.
talk to clients about technology and
Right.
kind of the revolution of what and transformation that can be
Yeah.
delivered, through these
Mhm.
adoptions. And so I think there's multiple businesses, so many businesses that are going to be driven by this next revolution of,
Sure. Mhm.
let's say AI.
Yeah.
And so many businesses are going to be transformed, but there's going to be people involved in getting that to the consumers because not everybody understands how it's done. So I think,
Right.
we're looking at a whole new set of businesses that will be affected in a different way, but bringing something unique to the
Mhm.
marketplace is um,
Well, it's
such a
looking at
strong point.
outcomes, right? So like when I started my first company, it was really about like what outcomes are these guys trying to get to? And then what is the most efficient mechanism or process or orchestration that you could apply to that
Yeah,
particular company to get the outcome fast?
right.
And then how does technology fit into that particular mechanism? Yeah. And
Mhm.
how do you make that mechanism go faster? How do
Right.
you make that mechanism be data driven? And then how do you interpret the data?
Yeah.
Now, as you look today, artificial intelligence really has the ability to look at large amounts of data, like all the data on the internet, but it's also able to look at your own personal data or your own organization's data. So this mechanism I'm talking about, here's an outcome you want, here's the mechanism and how you get there. The mechanism is driven from data. Okay, great. So instead of having dashboards or mechanical analysts cranking it, you've now got infinite compute that
Yeah.
can crank infinitely that data as long as you have it structured in a way that's accessible.
Right.
So the big thing is make your data accessible, make your data understandable, and then apply the AI to that. And within seconds, you'll get incredible results. And you can then, improve that flywheel and get the flywheel to go faster and
Yeah.
faster
Yeah.
to get you a better. But you do need to know what the outcome you want. Yeah.
E-
What outcome you're looking for. Yeah. And your data is
Exactly.
going to be accessible. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in counting, one of the barriers I would say to getting good output is what's going in, and that
Yeah.
is so much of what we're focused on at our firm is
Hmm.
getting that streamlined information so that you can actually go faster and faster and faster, but you have to streamline things first
Yes.
and
Hmm.
really have a clear strategic plan on how you're going to get there. So that
Right.
is something that we are constantly looking at as we're, trying to work with our clients. So I am so glad that you mentioned end result because
Mhm.
you, as a consultant, as a strategic advisor, you always have to be thinking about what. what are the results we're really trying to get, and then work backwards,
And
right?
work backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, what does good look like? What does exceptional look like? And what does the unbelievable look like?
Right.
And sometimes you don't know what unbelievable looks like, but you can kind of wiggle your way there by examining the data.
Yeah.
And the mechanisms, especially in the last 6 months, the different tooling from AI has now started to become exceptional.
Yeah.
Um, it came alive in sort of 23, 24, and it was sort of maybe 10, 15% accurate. Today, I think the accuracy levels are 85, 86%. And with that transformational change, it's accelerated heavily in the last sort of 6 months.
Mhm.
If you're not using it at the moment, you should be in the future. But in addition, it's
Yeah.
really like how do you find a way to get the human out of the loop? So if you're using it as an assistant, then you're limiting its effectiveness. Yeah.
Mhm.
You want to be able to be the assistant to the AI so you can help it go faster. And that
Yeah.
can be a little bit of a challenge when it doesn't sleep, and it doesn't take
Yeah.
breaks, and it doesn't take holidays. So yeah,
You're
that can be a
right.
challenge.
Yeah. Well,
Mhm,
and I think that's one of the things I think we're learning in our firm too,
mhm.
is how to build out frameworks so that
Right.
you can really execute with AI properly,
Mhm.
and give your employees an opportunity to transform their positions and
Right.
really manage it well across the whole entire organization, which you do need a framework. You need a strategy of how you're going to do that. And so, I I let me ask you this question because I think this is probably we
Mhm.
just jumped right in. And so there's
Sure.
so many nuggets in what you just said. What are most executives misunderstanding right now about AI adoption inside companies?
I think, the way it was kind of rolled out was sort of slow and steady, almost as a novelty.
Hmm.
And then IT leaders rolled out sort of like co-pilot to a certain extent,
Hmm.
in across their companies. And what happened is people just got smarter emails. Yeah. So they were using it to write emails. They were
Yeah,
using it to, yeah, just that thing, just make me look smarter.
right.
And then you were using it to do different research and different topics. Your emails were better, your responses were better, and you were more informed. But it didn't actually do anything for the company. It didn't generate any additional insights, no
No.
transformations, no outputs, so to speak. So you're just basically trying to make everybody smarter by give them a little assistant. And that just increases the cost. Like so, if you look at sort of Copilot, the licenses were about $30 a month per person.
Hmm.
Yeah. So E5 licenses were $60, E9, which is the one with Copilot was 99 dollars and so forth. So
Hmm.
you're really, increasing your cost per license by a third. Yeah. So as an accountant, you can kind of do the math on that.
Uh-huh.
That's a very expensive way to actually write smarter emails, right?
Ah,
And you're not getting those outputs that you want. So I think that was the sort of general flurry of experimentation where people spent quite a lot of money and really businesses got very little output from it. Everyone got smarter, everyone looked better, everyone was, being more polite and all that sort of stuff. But
yes.
the actual output for a company's bottom line was getting worse, not better.
Yes.
Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
spending money. So I think, when we look at the last sort of year, the AI components got better and better and better. Anthropic, with Cowork, and Claude Code, has now sort of been able to get you, and GPT has as well as the other, Gemini has too, but you've now been able to get these bots that can do multiple tasks for you. So
Hmm.
you can steer them at tasks, in particular writing code,
Hmm.
and in one of the startup companies we have, they have a full AI native development environment where they have 28 different bots that develop all of the code,
Wow.
and the humans are there to kind of help provide context
Sure.
and to steer it to certain outcomes. But the
Yeah.
actual code itself has all been done agentically, by Claude Code.
Wow.
And the productivity per engineer has moved from, one engineer equals one unit of output to one engineer equals 13 and a half units of output.
Mhm.
And that has accelerated dramatically over the past 6 months.
Yeah.
So I think, getting a focus on what are the outputs a business needs. Do you need to take a look at your purchasing environment and become smarter at doing purchasing and create certain outputs and behaviors, analyze data to create sort of like smarter purchasing techniques? If you're looking at warehousing your products in your supply chain, if you have $1 billion in your supply chain warehouses, is there a smarter way to store that so you can free up free cash for other purposes? So instead of having $1 billion of inventory, maybe you only need 750
Right.
because you know what the critical parts are that your suppliers, your customers need.
Mhm.
Those are the sorts of things that make a meaningful impact.
Yeah.
Developing code. Do you need 1,000 people to develop code, or can you now do that with 100?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Those are all things that are happening as we speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those are happening with my clients. And I don't want to say which clients are doing what, but
Yeah.
my clients are doing those things.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And we're taking technology spend down by 20, 30, 35% in some cases.
Yeah. One of the things that I've noticed in our company as we're implementing AI, and I think you've really hit like nail on the head, is that there's so many people are just using it as a cleanup tool, not really
Yeah.
something that's going to move the needle in their jobs. And I think that we as humans a lot of times don't know how to take it from a cleanup tool to, really dive into the analysis part of it. Um,
Yeah.
and I think that that is really again the next stage of education revolution or evolution, in that we learn how to actually work alongside bots. And
Hmm.
it's not necessarily the people that are going to be completely replaced by AI. It's the people that don't know how to use it. They're going to be replaced by AI because you have to learn how to implement. AI needs context.
Yes.
It needs
Absolutely.
context, and it needs
Mm-hmm.
your experience. It needs your a way to learn. And
Mm-hmm.
it's at least at this point, AI still needs us.
Yeah.
So it's the other way around. It's
Yeah, treat it like a junior engineer. Yeah.
yeah,
So like you talk about you need to get things right. You need to be able to provide that context. One of the things that we've used is there's a tool called Empower, EMPWR dot AI, and we kind of use that to help us refine our ideas. So
mm,
essentially, you get together as a team, you have a conversation, you're chatting, and it kind of, basically is able to pull out the key attributes of that conversation that relate to a product or to an outcome. And then you can have multiple meetings or multiple conversations with multiple people, and it aggregates that all together around these particular outcomes that you're looking. And then that can put it into your engineering system.
wow,
Yeah. And then your engineering system can do it. So you're not in a computer sort of typing on your keyboard saying, hey, here's my specification. You're riffing with your friends, your colleagues, your coworkers, and you're doing it in different environments that are natural to you as a human. And the Empower AI bot is capturing all of that information and orchestrating it in a way that you could feed it into Claude.
wow,
And then as you feed it into Claude, Claude can do its magic.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And you can, as Claude creates some outputs, you can then fine tune those outputs using these types of tools to provide greater context. Here's the rules, Claude, by which I think you should execute.
Yeah,
There's compliance rules, there's regulatory rules. I'm calling in from the state of Pennsylvania. You're calling in from Arizona.
right,
Okay, we're going to have a product and it's going to be launched in Arizona and Pennsylvania.
right.
Here's the framework of the regulations for both states. Okay, let's work within those compliance guidelines. Yeah.
Yeah,
So the more and more context you give it, and the more data you can feed it, the better the outcome. So I
right,
think that you're right. The people that can embrace that sort of expansive thinking and curiosity are going to
right.
win in this new world.
Yeah,
Uh, and if you're just locked into this is the way I've always done things, this is my little process,
yeah,
just feed me with information that I feel is relevant,
Right.
that's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not. With Envorso, what made you decide to focus deeply on AI and digital transformation before it became mainstream conversation it is today?
I sold PQ back in 2013, 2014, and then exited that organization.
Right.
I sold it, joined the corporate board, did all that thing, with public companies and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I was kind of like looking around for what the next thing would be. Theoretically, I was retired, but
Yeah.
I was in my early 40s, and I'm like, oh, I don't know, I'm not really ready to retire yet. So
I'm bored.
I'm bored. Yeah, there's the 3 months of, oh, that was hard work. Now I'll take a break, and then there's the extra 3 months of, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored, I'm bored.
Yeah.
You need to do stuff. So, I was curious. I did some work with some VCs in San Francisco and Seattle, just sort of diligence activities, which got me interested and reconnected with some of the tech guys that I know, and with some of those tech firms that they were working with.
Hmm.
Um, I knew some of the big industrial companies were having challenges trying to integrate software into their products. So let's calling a spade a spade.
Hmm.
Tesla was killing some of the auto companies.
Oh,
Yeah, right? So back in the day, all the big auto companies in Detroit, looked at Tesla as a toy. Oh, it's an electric thing. It's got some
yeah.
stuff. Oh, it's cool. Oh,
Sure.
they sold 20 cars this month. Oh, cute. Well done. Well done. Pat them on the head. And then, you roll the dice a couple of years and bingo, they got gigafactories and they're selling over 1 million cars a year.
Hmm.
Oh, hang on a second. There might be something there. Oh, by
Right.
the way, they're creating really advanced technology and we're not even at the starting gate yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was working in the tech world in the West Coast. I was looking at my friends and colleagues in the industrial sector in the Midwest, the Rust Belt, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, these guys are going to have to become technology, advanced technology providers with their product,
Yeah.
and they're not even at the starting gate yet.
Hmm.
So either they're going to be overtaken by other firms from other countries,
Hmm.
or they're going to be swamped by startups, or I can get in there and I can help them.
Yeah.
And so that was the genesis of the idea. It wasn't just building software for software's sake. It was building software that enabled an experience around a product. That experience could be a tractor, it could be a digger, it could be a car, it could be a truck, a bus, it
Yeah.
could be a connected, school system. So it was how do we find a way to get technology into these companies that are not software companies, but they are going to become software companies. They
Right.
just don't know it yet.
Yes.
And
Hmm.
I have all the software technical experience. We have the hardware experience. And so it was like, okay, let's build a company that can help these organizations do that. And that
Yeah.
was the genesis of Envorso. Let's just really, create this unique beast that can really help industrial companies become software companies.
Yeah.
And as we went through that journey, the technology started to change. Uh, we started to use artificial intelligence back in 2016.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, we were using basic data analytics, we were using responsive algorithms, we were using sort of like traceability logic, et cetera, et cetera. And then as we went forward, we kind of started to get more into, oh, okay, there are some early models like 1.0, 2.0 of GPT that have become available. We can kind of start to use that to help us in our journey. And then, the flywheel started to move. And then,
Yeah.
of the last sort of, everyone's aware that the last year, particularly the last 6 months,
Yeah.
that flywheel has now been supercharged and you can
Yeah.
hardly, it's going so fast. So it's been
Yeah.
great for us to be part of that journey since day one. And
Hmm.
it's great for us to bring the technology to some of these larger, industrial companies and help them compete. And we've made a material difference in their operation.
Yeah.
So,
I love what you're mentioning because you're talking about large companies like
yeah,
really locking in on the technology world.
yeah,
And I've always been really proud of the fact that I'm a smaller
yeah,
firm, but I can still do quite a bit of things that larger firms can do because of technology and our
Hmm.
adoption to it. And
Sure.
so I think what we are seeing also with this new dawn or new horizon, if you will,
Hmm.
is small companies getting a hold of and starting up and doing some really cool work in the space, um,
Yeah.
and seeing problems and producing new solutions that we never even thought of before. Um,
Yeah.
and so it's pretty exciting. And I think you're right. In the last 6 months, it just feels like it's blown up.
Oh
Uh,
yeah. Hmm.
it's
Yeah, for
gotten
sure.
big.
I mean, if you think about it, right? So you're a large service provider, and
Mhm.
you have invested, hundreds, tens, hundreds of millions of dollars in certain services.
Yeah.
Yeah, and those services you provide to your large customer, and the large customer has sort of geared their organization around these processes that are fairly, gigantic and somewhat bureaucratic, etc. And they rely on those service providers to provide the enabling technologies for those processes, so to speak.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
What's the incentive for anyone in that stack to change?
None.
None. Right. Yeah. So you could go, like, we have been able to go into companies and take a look at, $100 million workflow and take that down to $6 million,
Mm,
like, and do it within 6 months. And
wow.
it's really just having that curiosity of like, okay, we can do this differently now. Oh,
Hmm.
why do you need so many, handoffs and different data providers to do these particular functions? Why can't you integrate them together? Why
Right.
don't you ingest that data into a single, data mart, and then be able to use AI in the data mart to be able to provide these insights that'll get you moving further and faster.
Hmm.
Gee, okay, well let's do that. And we're
Yeah.
motivated to be curious, and
Right.
we're motivated to use these technologies that other people, are slower to
Yeah.
adapt because we're just living them every day.
Yeah.
And that allows us to create new opportunities for our clients to really, really spin. And some companies come with us, and some companies go by the wayside. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. You mentioned, everybody or certain organizations being locked into the way they always have done them. In my industry specifically, the tax process, tax software,
Oh,
fintech.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh
For
my
sure.
gosh, they had a, monopoly on how things were going to be done.
Yes.
And you could not automate certain things because it was just the way it was. You're like, there's nothing to, no APIs, no ways to import, export, things like that. I feel like this year, this tax season, especially, we are seeing, well, we saw a product come out called Tax GPT.
Yeah, okay.
And
Hmm.
Tax GPT actually will help review tax returns and help us to make sure we're not missing anything compliance wise.
Hmm.
And if we've missed something from prior year to this year. So that was something that was never even in our like purview. We didn't never even expected it. But now we're
Right.
seeing more and more competition. And I think the firms that are actually starting to look at these things are going, oh my gosh, I won't even
Yeah.
need this monopolized service anymore or product,
Right.
let's say.
Yeah,
So
you're being able to use the compute power. So you got infinite compute,
yes,
on the internet, and it's coming at a really ridiculously low cost.
yes,
I know people say $100 a month is a lot, but it's really, really, you know,
super
you know,
low. Yeah,
$1,200 a year for supercomputing capability. Like, okay, get over yourself. It's
yeah,
cheap.
yeah.
Yeah. So, but you're taking a look at it and going, okay, well, here's a complex database. Um, you've got, say you've got Claude going, and you've got Claude, code, or, yeah, say you've got Claude code up. You can basically say, okay, database over here from, TurboTax.
Right.
Okay. Please take a look at this database of TurboTax, dissect it for me, tell me what the key points are, tell
Uh-huh.
me what the key questions are and what the algorithm says, and then feed that back to me in a way that I can then use it myself without
Yes.
having to go through TurboTax.
Right.
Okay, great. Here's 17 different clients that have used it in this particular way.
Mhm.
Analyze those 17 clients using this particular algorithm and methodology, and tell me what's wrong with it. tell me
Yeah.
how I can improve upon it. Then take a look at the 70 billion gazillion pages of tax code.
Yes.
Okay, that would take somebody, a lifetime to even read if they didn't die of
Yeah.
boredom halfway through it.
Right.
Um, right? Analyze all of that and then apply it to these particular situations and tell me, some insights.
Right.
And that can be done within 1 to 2 hours.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think our brains,
Hmm.
have a hard time conceptualizing the ability to do that. Like we are
Yeah.
so, I've been a CPA for 26 years now. So
Okay.
I've seen things change and evolve over time. In
Hmm.
2012, I said, I'm going to get out of doing only, tax
Sure.
returns where they didn't have a business associated, right? Because I'm like, the federal government's going to prepare returns for us, or a state government, somebody's going to do it for us for
Hmm.
people who are filing their forms for themselves, like easily.
Sure.
So I'm going to move my business. I'm going to pivot and do
Hmm.
something different. So we're fractional outsourced accounting and advisory now.
Right.
I will be I, I will be affected by this new change, in the way things are
Uh-huh.
going. So we'll have to pivot again. But I think our minds are so blown, and but businesses that are not pivoting and thinking forward and thinking even 2 months forward,
Hmm.
like what's going to happen in 2 months, because that's how quickly AI is changing. And
Yeah.
it's,
Well, you've now got your clients. You're providing advisory services, not
yeah,
just tax preparation. Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah. So now you're
Yes.
saying, okay, I have all this public accounting information, all these public databases and TurboTax, etc. I've got all the regulatory frameworks. I can train an AI agent to look at all the different regulatory frameworks by state and by federal,
Right?
and then by international as appropriate. So you could have like 50 agents. Each one could be an expert in one
Yes.
particular state. You could have a couple of other agents, and each of those would be an expert within different aspects of federal tax law. So you have maybe 70 or 80 agents that are just specialized. They're
Yes.
they're not just generic agents, they're specialized in those things. And then whenever you have a client come in and they provide you their stuff, you throw that at your 60 to 70 agents and it'll
Yeah.
come back with, here's some advanced thinking that your client may not, and then you can say, well, no, that doesn't make sense. Or this, what about this? What about that? And then you can provide questions to your agents.
Yeah.
And then when you go back to your client is blown away
Yes.
by the massive expertise that you as a small firm are now able to provide to them. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, I used BDO or I used whatever firm,
Right.
and it's like they couldn't get anywhere near this.
No.
And all of a sudden, a small business that you own is now beating the big guys. And
Yes.
that's called agency.
Yes. Well, and I'll tell you, it's not hard to do because
Yeah,
the slow adoption of, financial people generally pretty slow adopting, and they're very risk adverse. And so, if you can get ahead of it, really lock down the security parts of it and ensure that, you have a good process,
right.
sky's the limit. Sky's the
Yeah.
limit. And it doesn't take much to set yourself apart, is what I'm finding.
And it's the same thing like, the software providers in your industry are the same as the software providers in multiple other industries.
Yeah.
What do? They create an algorithm. You input your data to their algorithm, and they sell you your data results back.
Mm,
That's kind of how it works.
yeah.
And that's how all SaaS providers, whether it's Salesforce or whether it's SAP, that's kind of how they all work. They're basically, you know, you give those providers your data, and then they sell it back to you.
Mm,
Okay, all right. Well, I can do that myself now.
yeah. Yes.
I can start to have agency around what I want to do. And
Mm,
so that's why you're seeing the stock price of some of these companies drop through the floor because people are not predicting that in 5 or 6 years' times their revenues will be worth what they are today.
yeah.
Because a lot of people will start to do these things for themselves, or companies like your firm or my firm
Mm,
will start to disrupt them by creating more agile ways of working that will be more suited to our clients' outputs.
yeah.
And so, that's what's happening, a massive disruption. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're seeing it in the stock market and everyone's going, ah, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't
For
know what's
sure.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think that I mean, speaking of the stock market, I think it just hit another all-time high yesterday, but
But
um yeah, things are changing drastically and it's different than it's happened in the past before too. So it's like it's transformational. We don't know exactly and it I think that's where, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty, but yet people feel very I don't know, is it bullish or bearish? I'm not sure which one it is, but
people are both at the same time, right? So,
yeah,
people see the stock market is going up and the stock market is increasing, right? So it's hitting all-time highs. But if you
yes,
look below that, it's only a few firms that are driving that. Yeah.
right.
So it's not broad-based. So it's basically everyone's piping into certain firms. Then you have also got private companies that are huge and humongous.
Yeah,
Uh, and when are they going to start doing their IPOs? And if they do IPOs, how
yes,
is that going to disrupt the existing players? And so there's bullish market for certain companies, not for everyone, but for certain companies. And then there's a bearish market going like, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. What happens if, So it's both bullish and bearish at the same time.
yes, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh, we could totally nerd out over AI this whole time.
Yeah.
So, but I have another question for you, and I think it's
Sure.
very a really great question, and particularly for me as I'm making this transition from being the expert, the founder, the person that's in charge of like knows everything. Many founders tie their identity closely to the company they build. How
Mhm.
have you managed that relationship over time?
Everyone has a personality. When you find a company, the most important decision you have from a culture perspective is going from one to two.
Hmm.
I also think then there's like going from four to five. So when you go from one to two, your behaviors change. When you go from four to five, your behaviors change. And when you go from 24 to 25, your behaviors change again. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, and what I mean by that is like when you bring someone else on board, you become more collaborative.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're working one to five, one to six, and so forth, you're spending time mentoring people and you're working with individual people,
Yes.
and you're making sure that the way you work and the way they work is blended together. So
Mhm.
one plus one equals a bigger number, and,
Right.
and so you're becoming greater and greater, and you're getting people to work in the roles that excites them. You're excited, they're excited, and you're driving things forward. When you go to 24, 25, you're not doing one-to-one anymore. And if you
Yeah.
are, you're not getting any result out of it because you're so tired and exhausted that
Yes.
you're not, because
Yes.
there's just not enough hours in the day to get that sort of stuff together. So you're delegating and you're empowering supervisors.
Hmm.
And then sometimes you'll get good ones and sometimes you'll get bad ones. But are they really bad? Or
Hmm.
maybe they're just people who've got individual creativity and they're not in the right role that they need to be in
Sure.
that allows them to contribute to the greater thing. So I
Right.
think there's natural points where things get better. But in terms of getting back to your question, that personality and that drive that you have on day one becomes the personality of the company. And that personality of the company gets morphed as you go from four to five, 24 to 25, 140 to 150, and
Hmm.
up to 1,000 and a couple of thousand people.
Yeah.
Getting to 3,000 people is a different game than being
Totally.
at 24 people. And I've been through that, continuum on multiple companies. So,
Yeah.
uh, but it's the culture of the company is the core of you. Yeah. And then your core changes as you change with input from other people that are talented and excited, and the
Sure.
supervisors build things out. So that core dynamic works. And the more successful that culture of you partnering with your employees and your supervisors becomes the reason why a company will scale. If you're at conflict with your supervisors, you won't scale. If
Hmm.
if your supervisors are working with you dynamically and you're all together and you're all super excited and everyone's in the right role, then things scale. Things
Yeah.
really go powerful. They go supercharged. And you create some profits, you reinvest those profits into different aspects of the business. You get new service lines, you get new opportunities, you expand geographically. In my first company, we had 17 offices across the world in four continents.
Wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was a lot of miles in the butt. which is a young man's game.
Yeah.
I get it. But you
Yeah.
know, you're creating those profits, you're reinvesting those profits, and you're expanding the business to create a larger business, and that virtuous cycle goes. But it only works if you get the right people in the right roles, and you listen to them, and your organizational DNA morphs and changes to cater for those new inputs.
And I've noticed too, because we don't have, 24 or 25 employees, but we
Mhm.
have, I want to say we're about 19 right now.
Mhm.
They're, they could be part-time. We could also have furthermore like vendors that are doing fractional like marketing and things like
Sure.
that.
Hmm.
So that has become more expansive as we've
Yeah.
grown. And I've
Mhm.
noticed that it has required me to definitely put some different layers in place because there's no way I can manage it one to one. There's just
That's
no,
right. If you're in a very highly skilled group, whether it's highly technical, 1 to 5 or 1 to 6 works as a ratio. If it's less technical and a little bit more process oriented, you can get maybe 100, 1 to 10 or 1 to 12,
Mhm.
maybe 1 to 14.
Mhm.
But that would be more of a highly process versus a more technical aspect
Right.
to it. And after 1 to 14, all hell breaks loose.
Yes.
It's like if you think of you're trying to get a 1 to 14 ratio, right? You've got what, 60 hours in a week on average.
Yes.
You're getting what, 2, 3 hours per employee. Come on, that's not going to work. So
Mhm.
that's when you got to get supervisors in there. I do like, people always talk about knowledge management systems used to be a big buzzword back in the day.
Yeah.
You can create now like a team version of Claude. So everyone in your company can be on enterprise or team. You
Yep.
can create projects. All the files for those particular service lines or projects could be stored in those locations. And
Yeah.
then everyone who logs in gets the most up-to-date thinking on those particular projects because everyone's contributing to the same corpus of data.
Yes.
And then anything you create will learn from that corpus of data. So
Yes.
then it becomes a super intelligent knowledge management system for your business. And
Mhm.
that's about setting up enterprise and team in a way that you get projects, and those projects are related to your core business. And
Yeah.
then teaching people how to do that is something that I think is a valuable service line. And we do that for a lot of companies these days. It comes second nature to us because we've been doing it for like, 10 years.
Sure.
But if you're coming new to it, it's quite a lot of things to learn at once.
Sure.
Um, and so I find that if you can get people to work in those sort of enterprise project domains and get them to work collectively as a team, your productivity goes through the roof quite quickly.
Yeah.
So it's adopting that way of working and being curious about it is
Right.
is is where I would strongly encourage small and big businesses.
Yeah, I think that's the thing is like not everybody understands that what Claude you can add teams and
Yeah.
then you build skill sets across your entire teams where you actually have like AI employees that could do the same things for, whatever task it is you're trying to do. And so the more people you have that can create um those skill sets, those prompts, whatever it is that, you end,
Mhm.
I mean, if it's even a task that's going to be automated, those are the types of things that you have to teach the entire organization so that they can, it's exponential growth than
Yeah, and
everybody.
you create a think of it in the old world. You create a sort of file repository, like a directory structure. Okay,
Yeah,
and the directory structure is called X, and within that directory structure is 2,000 documents that relate to the service line of X, or the process of X, or the product of X, right?
right.
And then you train an AI skill on that. So then that skill is product X. You got product Y, you got the alphabet. So you got 26 product groups,
Right.
and each one of those has a skill. So you got 26 agents now with different skills. So then you go out there to the thing, go out to the Borg, so to speak, and you go like,
Uh-huh.
hey, you guys, I want to try and create a 27th product. Okay, tell me which one of you guys is missing a particular aspect in your skill and what that could possibly be. And then you start to riff and you create a 27 product. You can do those sorts of things, but you just got to, it's not a free for all of like one human being saying, I want to work with AI, or another human being saying, I want to work with AI. It's more of a deliberate sort of top down. You as a business owner need to structure how your organization is going to work with these skills. What
Yeah.
skills are going to be created? What aspects, what data repositories are going to be fed into those skills so they
Yeah.
become better? And what's your way of working? I mean, and it's a human conversation. It's just
Yes.
human. It's got nothing to do with the technology. The technology is a tool. It's an advanced tool. It can do amazing things, but you gotta structure your business the way you want it to be structured using these skills.
Right. That's the disconnect. So many people don't quite understand that the AI can build the next conversation or can
Yeah.
interview you, can
Mhm.
pull out and ask you questions and help you be reflective. And I mean, from a business standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint, there's a lot of things that you can do
Yeah.
to actually overcome some of the challenges that you might be having right now. And so, literally, a conversation with AI.
The more context, again, you're saying basically what you're saying is the more context you can give it, the better it can.
Yeah.
Stick on the audio button, hit the audio, and start
Yes.
talking to it, and you'll give it more context, and then
Yes.
it becomes better and better and better. And if you worry about secrecy, do a RAG model, so you're hidden back from the main corpus of tradable data. So
Yes.
lots of things to do, and it's quite the barrier to entry is low, but people are not getting the end benefit because they're not structuring the way they
Yes.
adopt it the right way. And
100%. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you structure your adoption the right way, you'll get benefit immediately,
Yes.
and then it gets into that. Yeah, we know the snowball effect and the virtuous cycle and all that sort of stuff. But yeah,
Yeah.
yep,
Yeah. Well,
yep. But here we are. We're back at AI again.
yeah, yeah, no,
Yeah,
no, that's okay. That's okay. Because it
yeah.
is all about structure and
Mhm.
how to bring this conversation to the rest of the world. People don't know, like they don't know that this is what they
Yeah.
need to do. And so this
Yeah.
is very valuable information.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Hmm.
You're probably going to say AI again, but so
I'll try and avoid AI for
no,
now.
no, it's okay
We've kind of
because this
we've
next
riffed on it a
question,
little bit. Yeah.
this next question is going to be, if you were starting over today,
Hmm. Yes.
what would you do differently and what would you do exactly the same?
The last company I started would have been about 2 years ago. Um, and the first company I started was over 30 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. Um, so I think when you're 27, you're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, the world's ahead of you. You don't know what you don't know, and you can work very hard, um, you know, um, to iterate through, information to create yourself, to make yourself smarter, and to have a better business. As I've got older, there are certain things, there are shortcuts I can take. Not,
Sure.
well, shortcuts is not the way. It's like I know stuff that works and stuff that doesn't work. So I
Sure.
can instantly go to the stuff that works and avoid the stuff that didn't work. Um, Cranking through large volumes of data, we all know how to do that now. And
Yeah.
I'll not use the word, but it's two
Yes,
things.
we do.
Yep. Yep. It begins with A, ends in I. So you can now crank through volumes of data that make it so much easier than it would have been in the past.
Sure.
So information is now at your fingertips. My first company, we were dealing with 28.8K modems going.
Yes.
We were doing that, and you
Yeah.
were downloading a file at home that would take 2 hours, right? Now it's instant, yeah.
Yes.
And you had laptops that took forever to crank. Now computers, is infinite. Yeah. So you can crank through more volume quicker, better than you used to. Why? What would I tell myself back then? Um, I think the ability to manage risk from a human perspective is the most important thing to get used to. Because whether your business is one person or whether your business is 3,000 people, there's always risk that needs to be taken.
Mhm.
when you start off, you're taking a risk because you're disrupting somebody else's business, yeah, to create an opportunity for your business to add value. There are incumbents, and you're disrupting the incumbent because you've got higher value to add.
Sure.
Um, when you get to a 3,000 person company, you are the incumbent. And so you have to disrupt your own company.
Yes.
Um, and I think founder-led businesses are typically more so if a founder has created a business and they have led that business to become a bigger business, they're always looking for the disruption. They're always looking for the disruptive angle. And so they keep the business fresh by doing that. I think, guys that come into a company that's already established and they optimize the company are perhaps risk adverse. They don't want to be the guy to tank the business.
Yeah.
Whereas the founder will go like, what the hell have I got to lose? I'm going to do it
Sure.
anyway.
Yeah.
So the ability to manage risk um, as your business scales sort of like gets goes on steroids. So people will turn around and say that I have an aptitude for risk that most people couldn't understand.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I set up a professional sports league in
Yeah.
the United States. For God's sake,
Yeah. Yeah.
who does that?
Right.
Yeah, and it's successful. Okay,
Yeah.
but it's a massive risk, but you work really hard to try and make that a success. And if you get into failures, like if a team fails, yeah, failure happens.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But you work hard to rectify it, learn from it, and modify it going forward to become better and stronger.
Right.
Uh, and so your aptitude for risk, I think, gets hardened over time.
Yeah.
That's the lesson I've taken from the last 30 years.
Yeah.
How do you manage risk without it affecting your personal life? Yeah.
Right.
If I threw my 27-year-old self into my current world, I'd probably have heart failure within 2 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah. No, that's excellent. I think that that's probably, you're right. It's one of the harder things for an entrepreneur to
mhm.
manage the risk level, and then the where I see a lot of people break, I guess you could say, is when the fear of failure ruins that next opportunity. And
Yeah.
so it's something you have to continue to manage as you're growing your companies because
Yeah.
yeah, what happened in the beginning for me is not anywhere near what where I'm at now. So
It's not a straight line, is it? No.
no, definitely
No.
not.
And
So
success is built on failure. So like why worry about failing, you know?
yes,
Fail fast. Don't prolong it.
right.
Um, and then flip and do something different, you
Yeah,
know? So fail fast, learn and go on, because successful companies are not a straight line.
I love that. We're gonna end on that. So,
Okay.
Adrian, I have really enjoyed this conversation. I want to make sure that other people can reach out to you, contact you, learn
Sure.
more about you. So, where is the best place for them to do that?
So if they send me an email, I'm at Adrian, Adrian, at Envorso, Envorso.com.
Okay.
Reach out to me on email. I'll be more than happy to interact and ask questions, answer questions, do whatever. I love talking to people, so please reach out to me.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. For those of you who are still with us, please make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll continue to put out great content and wonderful founders like Adrian in the next months.
Thank you, Gabrielle. I appreciate your time. Thank
Thank
you.
you.